Welcome to The Evidence-Based Marketer, a podcast focused on the science of marketing with a special emphasis on financial services. Whether you're looking to grow your business or provide a better client experience, we focus on how you can use data and research and time-tested strategies to be a more effective marketer.
Welcome to the Evidence-Based Marketer, and this is episode 3 of our 5-part series on marketing and the 5 senses, and today we're going to focus in on touch. I'm William Chettle, Director of Experience and Engagement here at Symmetry Partners.
I'm Andrea Loyne, Digital Marketing Specialist here.
And so we're going to talk about touch, and while all of your senses are located in specific parts of the body, you smell through your nose, taste through your tongue, etc., the sense of touch actually occurs everywhere on your body, and this is because it's a bunch of nerve endings. It's actually 20 different types of nerve endings that send information about the things your body comes in contact to the spinal cords and onto the brain, and then the brain decides that's hot, that's cold, that's sharp, that's smooth, and I mean, the amazing thing about all these nerve endings, it's temperature, it's pressure. It's texture, it's whether something is wet or dry. And some parts of your body have more endings than nerve endings than others, and that's why they're sensitive to the touch. Your fingertips, your tongue, your lips. That's why people like to kiss. Have the most nerve endings.
Makes sense.
And you might not think that touch offers much opportunity for marketers, unless you're making something that's super smooth or like making a razor or something like that.
Yeah, as a digital marketing person, touch is the toughest one for me to embrace because it's the hardest one to do digitally, if at all. So this one's a little tough for me.
But it is really part of your overall brand for many, many firms. And just think about something as simple as business cards. Mm-hmm. We still generally use business cards, and people look at them for 5 seconds and put them away or lose them and never look at them again. But in that 5 seconds, they are making a judgment about your brand. And with all these things, want to make it a good judgment. So at minimum, you should be using 80-pound stock, if not 100, 120, so that you have really nice, beefy business cards. If nothing else, it'll make you more likely to win business card raffles at local restaurants. And how does the paper feel? Is it smooth? Things go in and out of fashion. For example, linen. That linen feeling was very popular on stationery business cards 10, 15 years ago. And if you still have that, you're just going to not only look, but feel out of date.
And you should update your business cards more than once every 10 years.
and even things like embossing. Do you have round edges versus sharp? These are all ways to access touch and send a message about your brand. If nothing else, it shows that these are the things that you pay attention to. And if you pay attention to the small things, people will often assume that you pay attention to the big things as well.
Well, and in a service industry, right, we don't have a product to touch. So in financial services, you're not handing them a product. But the Harvard Business Review did research that showed that it's a handshake or a touch on the back can lead people to feel safer and trust you more. And they're going to give you your money. You want them to feel safe and trusted with you. So a handshake still goes a long way for touch marketing.
And of course, the big issue is, what temperature is your office set to?
Yes.
So offices are set for the comfort of men. And in fact, what they did back in the 60s, and this is the standard they are still using today, was they looked at 40-year-old man weighing 154 pounds wearing a business suit. And so, and that
a little outdated
on so many levels. That's just not today's modern office. But typically, we find in studies that men are comfortable at a temperature of somewhere around 71 degrees, and women, on average, again, these are just averages, are comfortable about at 77 degrees. And so that's a fairly large, significant gap. But you do want to try to have an office that at least is as comfortable for as many people as possible. Or at least everybody's uncomfortable because you made the right compromise.
Yeah, make everyone equally uncomfortable. Yeah.
But also you think about what messages it's sending. If your office is super toasty during the winter, and you're in a sort of a green environment, or super chilly in the summer. We've often walked past stores in the summer which have their doors open and they're blasting air conditioning to try to lure you in. People are increasingly going to judge that, especially if you're trying to proclaim, whether it's a clothing manufacturer, et cetera, that you're green and that you care about the environment, and yet you're blasting air conditioning out the door.
Into the heat. Yeah, and there's, everyone knows who Apple is, and Apple, their marketing goes above and beyond everybody. But as far as touch marketing goes, they set up these stores that you can tangibly touch every one of their products. You can sit there for hours and play on an iPad and figure out if that's the one you want. They have staff that's walking around, and you'll notice they do put their hand on your shoulder when they come over to, see, maybe not in this environment now, but pre-COVID. But they really have hit the mark on touch. They want you to feel every one of their products, put your hands on it, see what it feels like, and they're embracing it. And they have a very expensive product, and they're still doing that with it.
Well, there's a psychological principle that if I touch something, it becomes more real and concrete, and this is why I think there's still a room and place for brochures and printed materials. Yep. And we're in financial services. I really recommend to folks that they have a brochure about their business or their services. And certainly, if they're making proposals, et cetera, print it out, give it to the client, give them something that they can touch and take away with them, because their financial plan, their portfolio, which is an abstraction, is going to feel a lot more real, a lot more concrete if it's something that they can actually touch and feel.
Well, back to your business card statement too. Don't print it on cheap, flimsy paper either. If you're going to buy a folder or print brochures, make sure that you're going the good quality route. Don't cheap out on it, because then you're going to look cheap to your customers. Make sure that if you print the brochure, it's on that heavier card stock. It feels like a brochure, not just something you printed off your printer.
Yeah, and it's interesting that when you think about touch, there are a lot of metaphors of touch in our language. When something is going well, we say it's going smoothly. Somebody who is kind of rude, we say that they're coarse. We have a soft spot for
prickly.
Prickly. We have a soft spot for things we love. People can be hard-hearted, and try to think of a synonym for a rough day or a hard day that doesn't involve some feeling of touch. And I think it's also important to think about the power of things like weight. There's a fascinating study that they did. They gave various test subjects 2 resumes, and they were identical resumes, so they were using different subjects, but identical resumes. And on one, it was printed out on flimsy paper, and it was just the paper. The other was on a heavy clipboard, and people consistently rated the candidate on the heavy clipboard as being more qualified than the one on the flimsy paper. And again, these are identical resumes.
Well,
and so you think about that, and if you're going to put your resume out there, put it on heavy paper.
Note to self.
Yes. But again, going back to, do you have proposals? Do you have? Are you giving people plans? Anything like that? It should probably be on pretty significant paper, or at least on a heavy clipboard, so that it feels weighty, that it feels significant, that it doesn't feel something that is lightweight that you didn't put any time or effort into.
Yeah, again, going back to the folder, you could slip it in a nice folder, and then that gives it a little beefiness to it.
Yep. One other thing that we just didn't cover on temperature, and again, these are averages, et cetera, that people negotiate better when they're at a comfortable temperature. So if you are in a situation where you have to negotiate, if you want to make sure that the temperature is comfortable for the person sitting there, because if they're not comfortable, they're going to be less likely to engage in favorable negotiations with you.
They're going to be prickly.
There's also some, again, I'm not a big fan of gender essentialism, but there are some, at least studies have found, some differences in how various genders perform on tests. So they found that women on average are better at math and word tests when room temperatures are warmer, and men perform a little bit better on these same tests when room temperatures are cooler. So probably one more way that men are subverting and undermining.
So if you're in the financial services, have each room have its own temperature control,
or at least bring sweaters and jackets so that you can take on, take off, etc.
That's right.
And again, another thing to think about is touch, and they've done some really interesting studies where they've asked people to read a passage about an ambiguous social interaction, one in which motivations and outcomes could be interpreted more than in one way. And just before being asked to read this, participants were asked either to complete a puzzle with rough pieces of paper or a puzzle with smooth pieces. And when they handled the rough puzzle pieces, they rated the interactions as being much more adversarial. And when they handled the smooth puzzle pieces, they said the sort of interactions were much smoother and more sort of friendly. They've also done things, I don't know who thinks these things up, but people were asked before reading a passage about an employee-supervisor interaction to either handle a wooden block or a smooth blanket. And if they handled the rough wooden block, they rated the interaction more negatively than if they handled the smooth blanket.
Oh, yeah, you got a smooth blanket.
Again, people have been asked to sort of stroke silk or sandpaper, make judgments. Yeah. And what you find is, again, because these metaphors are so embedded in the way we think and literally feel, that, having having something that is smooth, pleasant versus rough and unpleasant generally leads to a better judgment of the situation. So think about your office. What's on the floor? Yeah. Is it rough? Is it smooth? Is it hard concrete? Is it carpeted?
Plush carpet.
And especially, what chairs are you putting people in?
Mm-hmm. That's important. You want to make sure that they're comfortable. Chairs, you don't want them to be, fidgeting in their seats, getting uncomfortable, because again, that'll put them in that prickly mood.
Right. And if it's a nice smooth texture, chances are, again, people are going to judge the interactions with you more favorably.
Well, we recently have been looking at tchotchkes that we could give out, things we could give, as people come into the office. And one of the things we were looking at is pens. We ordered several samples of pens, and myself and our creative director sat down with the pens, and each of us had different favorite pens. And my reasoning was I didn't like the way one of them felt. His favorite pen that he picked felt great to him, but to me, it just felt weird. It felt like it was going to slip out of my hands.
It was too smooth.
But we had very different opinions on it. But we had to think about that, right? Because if one of us liked it and one of us didn't, there's a good chance that 50% of the people holding our pen wouldn't like it. So we didn't go with that one.
And it was not, what was interesting is that it was all about the touch experience of the pen.
Mm-hmm.
A pen is primarily about writing, but we really didn't care about what the writing was like. It was how did that pen feel in our hands?
Yep.
And when we bought notebooks to give out to clients,
did the same thing.
We did the same thing and went with something that had a nice, smooth, almost silky cover on it.
And different. It wasn't just a typical smooth cover. It had a softness to it as well. So that, we went and looked at additional samples and went right back to the one we had chosen originally.
And, even they've found that, going back to the idea of chairs, people sitting in uncomfortable chairs drive harder bargains in negotiation than people in soft, comfy chairs. So
beanbags.
If you're in a business with a lot of negotiations, comfortable temperatures, comfortable chairs, have people stroke smooth things, right. Have nice pens, have nice smooth notebooks and things like that, it's going to lead to much more favorable negotiations and interactions.
As we talked about in our last one too, make sure your office smells good and comfortable chairs, and you've got yourself a nice space for people to negotiate.
And obviously they're businesses, if you're designing physical objects, where touch is going to be super important. Mm-hmm. How does that feel? How does it fit in your hand? The architect Gaudi made handles. He would hold clay and then have that sort of hand imprint on clay turned into handles, and you touch those handles, and they're like the best handles you ever touched because it fits your hand absolutely perfectly. And and again, that's probably not going to be most professional services. You're not going to do that, but weight, touch, these are all things that can help you create a better experience, deliver better value, and improve the overall effect of your marketing. So it's something to think about. Again, it's so much is conducted these days online and digitally, but where there are these face-to-face interactions, where you are giving people physical things, why not use the sense of touch to make it as good an experience and as favorable to you and your brand as possible?
Yeah, no matter how you incorporate it, just be sure that you're not overlooking it. It's a very big opportunity for you in your marketing. So don't overlook the sense of touch just because you're in a service industry. You still have ways you can incorporate it.
And that wraps up our third episode on the 5 senses of marketing. Join us next time we're going to focus in on hearing. Until then, if you have more questions about us or want to listen to additional podcasts, go to theevidencebasedmarketer.com. See you soon.
Thank you.
Symmetry Partners, LLC is an investment advisory firm registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. The firm only transacts business in states where it is properly registered, excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration of an investment advisor does not imply any specific level of skill or training and does not constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Commission. No one should assume that future performance of any specific investment strategy, product, or non-investment related content made reference to directly or indirectly in this material will be profitable. As with any investment strategy, there is the possibility of profitability as well as loss. Due to various factors, including changing market conditions and/or applicable laws, the content may not be reflective of current opinions or positions. Please note the material is provided for educational and background use only. Moreover, you should not assume that any discussion or information contained in this material serves as the receipt of or as a substitute for personalized investment advice. Please note that nothing either stated or implied on this podcast is intended to be compliance or legal advice regarding your marketing program.